Proposed regular committee of the whole meeting to order on Tuesday, January 14th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have anyone that would like to speak in our public participation? Moving down to Father Edward.
All right, thank you very much, Mayor. Well, council members and Mayor, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. My name is Father Jeff Lively. I'm the pastor of Holy Family Church here in Lincoln, as well as the other three Catholic parishes in the county.
I'm the Father Jeff Lively, the pastor of Holy Family Church here in Lincoln, as well as the other three Catholic parishes in Logan County, St. Patrick's in Elkhart, St. Thomas Aquinas, and St. Mary's in Atlanta. I'm also a member of the Illinois Air National Guard, and in the 12 plus years that I have been here in Lincoln and in Logan County, the citizens of Lincoln and Logan County have been extremely generous in supporting our airmen and soldiers in the Illinois National Guard, specifically the airmen at that 183rd, where I served as a wing chaplain for many years. I'm currently now assigned to Camp Lincoln in Springfield. And so on behalf of Colonel Patterson, who just recently retired as our commander, I would like to present to you the Certificate of Appreciation, which reads as follows. Certificate of Appreciation presented to the citizens of Lincoln and Logan County, Illinois, for exceptional support and gracious gifts to the 183rd Airmen and their families. Your generosity to the 183rd Wing greatly contributed to the camaraderie, morale, and esprit de corps of the airmen and family members of the 183rd Wing. Your support and assistance are greatly appreciated and gratifying to the 183rd Wing. So on behalf of the airmen of the 183rd Wing, I appreciate your support and all of the good things that the citizens of Lincoln and Logan County have done for our airmen. Thank you.
Which one do you have?
And then I'll go. Sorry. Okay, my turn, guys. Alrighty, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving down, we have the Hanson Professional Services invoice number 71 for engineering work on the Fish Street Road project for $22,157.61.
Place on the agenda? Yes.
We'll place that on the regular agenda. Resolution for Carroll Catholic School for Catholic Schools Week, January 27th through the 31st, 2020. Beth, what day is that that they're having this ceremony again?
It's on the 27th.
At
It's 27th. I think it was at 11:15, and then we go into lunch in the cafeteria. And that they know it's
If anyone would like to join, we do have a ceremony that day. Okay. We'll place it on the regular agenda. Stewards billing for water well accounts within the city with infinite meter reading and ability. Tracy?
It seems that we've all slept a few days since we last talked about this. Beth put this on the agenda. It sounds like based on an email that was sent out, I think where we left off on this was that we agreed that those individuals who indefinitely would not be able to get meter readings due to the situation of wells would then fall into the low tier. But there was also a recommendation in that to change the language to make it similar to commercials, that any new properties that are built would have to have a meter installed. So that brings those two ordinances in the same. So I think unless there's any objection, we probably need to give city attorney some time to craft those ordinance changes, and I'd be glad to work with him on it. And we can bring it back in a later, Cal.
Are you okay with that?
Yes.
So Tracy, you'll work with John on that.
Yes, sir.
All right, city administrator's 3% increase retro to July 17th, 2019. This is
Regular agenda.
regular agenda, okay. City administrator's employment agreement for July 17th, 2019 through April 30th, 2021. Tracy?
Did you wanna talk about it?
I'll let you start. You don't have to.
So, as everybody knows, we've been working on the city administrator's agreement for, I went back through emails. I think we started talking about performance evaluations back in June of 19. So, we're about going on 7 months past on this particular topic. We've had several meetings about this. There were meetings back in November that took place, some with the council, some with those individuals working on that agreement, which those meetings consisted of Alderman Keller, the mayor, and Ms. Cavalman. So last communication that I received was on 12/13, that we would give the administrator an opportunity in the beginning of the year to address the council with any concerns that she had. Last Friday, I went into City Hall. I was in there for another reason, and while I was there, I ran into city administrator, and I asked her to go ahead and put this on the agenda so that we could have the discussion. Later that afternoon, I sent her the agreement as it is at this time, as well as recommendations to the ordinance for changes that the council desired. Those were vetted through all those that were working on the agreement together. So that's where we stand right now. Okay.
And then, you did send a subsequent email, with the change to the agreement, and I did not get that till Monday morning, I do apologize for that. So I'm still going through that, we've had some really, really busy days for last couple.
The only change in that particular agreement was, I think it had to do with comp time, the
Oh, yeah, you
amount of
did.
hours.
Mhm.
Other than that, all of the other items that we have previously talked about were reflected in there.
I'm not, I'll speak on that. The only thing I didn't, have, I know when we were doing negotiations for the police and fire and the street departments, we went down at T8, and we've always done that in negotiations, T8 every single item, and we haven't done that yet, so I'm doing that right now, going through, and then I will scan that and get that to you so you can see that, so we don't have to really have a meeting until we want to, unless you want. But that's the process. Usually you sit face to face and TA something and get it done.
So by the next count, you have.
Or, I might have it done earlier than that, yeah. What do you want?
It's not up to me, it's
Well, I think
the desire of the council.
Well, I don't think there would have been that much change, but you've had some drastic changes in there, and that's why I'd like to.
Do you mean drastic as in just from the job itself? Or do you mean drastic from when we previously talked the last time?
No.
That
From
we
what
talked
about
on
the things you're
December 2nd.
proposing to do, the bulk of my job. So if you wanna do it at the county next time, or if you wanna try to have it clean there, I mean, I don't think I can fit one more meeting in this week, but I'll be glad to try to finish this up. We've just been quite busy trying to do some real good stuff here that's opening up for the city.
Well, I mean, I guess I'll say if the council is amenable to that, I guess we can allow you some more time, and perhaps by the next CAL, we can put this back on and have it ready to be voted on in the following meeting. If that's.
I'm fine with that.
And if you have a meeting, or you know, before that,
Yeah, I definitely think that we need to have a meeting before that.
Those TAs.
Otherwise, what's gonna happen is we're gonna go to the next CAL, and then we're gonna be having the same discussion.
Yeah, so we do need to do that.
Yeah, does that give you enough time?
Yeah,
Okay, all right.
What's TA when you say TA?
Tentatively agree,
Right.
both sides
Okay.
do it as part of the negotiations process.
Thank you.
So this will be on the next count.
Yes.
Okay, item 10 is actually being removed at this time. Item 11 is U.S. Census 2020 update by Mr. Keller.
Thank you, Mayor. So last fall, late last fall, the council had appointed me to be the coordinator for the complete count for the city of Lincoln, as well as working with Will DeAndrea to be the co-chair for the county in the complete count. The job of the complete count, our committee, is to promote and encourage participation in the census. So I thought I'd come and bring an update to you. I have it in the packet, as well as I have some other copies here. And I'll just go over this a little bit, just so people understand the importance of the census and why it's taking place this year. Of course, it's a constitutional dictate. That's actually the first power that is listed in the Constitution for the federal government is the process of enumeration for the census, which is taken every 10 years. The participation in the census matters, of course, because apportionment for representation, for state representation as well as federal representation depends upon the census. As we know, Illinois has suffered a declining population, and so every person counts. So it's really important that we get out the participation for the census this year. I have on the sheet some reminders of what the census does and where the data is used, particularly in the distribution of over $675 billion of revenue from the federal government, which is given for schools, public safety, transportation, farm aid, housing assistance, public aid, and emergency and disaster relief. Some things that are with the census in 2020, this is the first digital census. The Census Bureau used to operate solely by mail. They are now encouraging people to respond to the census through online, through a computer or through the phone. And so when the mailings come out for the census, they will have a opportunity and give directions on how to respond through your phone or through your computer. Also with that, the goal is that there will be a quicker response time and more response. That means then that hopefully there will be fewer people going door to door after the census form is sent out for follow-up. And new this year, the census is available in 13 different languages. I can only speak one of those though. So the census actually, the mailing comes out probably in March. The actual date for the census day is April 1st. So what the census will ask is the number of members of a household, as well as their age, who live in that household as of April 1st. That is the date they designate. So if a move takes place, it is the date or whenever that takes place on April 1st. Thereafterwards, they'll wait a couple of months, and by summertime is when the follow-up enumerators will go to door, and follow-up mailings will take place to see if we can get more participation. The backside of this packet, this page 2, talks a little bit more about the non-participation and how it directly affects our community. As I said, dollars are very dependent upon the census numbers. Each person not counted equates to a loss of approximately $2,000 in funding each year. And Capsule, just one example, here in Logan County, has stated nearly all of the funding they receive is dependent and driven upon, say, census data. And so if the census reflects fewer people, they're going to get fewer dollars. So just another reason why the census numbers are important here. As I said, the legislation, the representation is based on census data, and our state and county are projected to decrease by a population of 3 to 5% or more. So we need all the numbers we possibly can. It's interesting to see that in 1920s, Illinois actually had 27 members of Congress. We now have 18. We're due to lose 1, if not 2. So again, we need all the numbers we can. Next steps for us on the Complete Count Committee, what we're doing. We're again formed a committee. This committee is made up of media representatives, health department, the library, the media are all involved to try to promote and encourage participation in the census. We're going to work with the census officials who will be coming to Logan County and working with the Retirement homes, institutional count is where we're really probably going to be needing a lot of encouragement, because this is where a lot of the numbers are. Retirement centers, colleges, things of this nature. Again, any college student is actually a resident of the city of Lincoln if they attend a college here. So we need to be sure that they all participate as well. So we'll be working with them as well. If anybody is interested in a part-time job, the Census Bureau pays $17.50 to be an enumerator, to be somebody who collects and inputs census data. So I have information there, and you can go online to apply if you are interested in that. So again, I also have some of the bottom things to keep in mind, and how people are counted. Again, children are counted where they live and sleep most of the time. In cases of equally shared joint custody, there are rules about who's counted where. Again, college students are counted as a resident of the campus where they live. And so more information, let me know, or I can direct you to the census website. So that's an update. We'll continue to meet, our Complete Count Committee will continue to meet in coming months, so we can work with some of those, again, group homes, retirement homes, prisons, as well as colleges, to make sure we have the count up. So April 1st is Census Day. We ask that you participate. Thank you.
Ron, just a quick question. So you said prisons, they go in there to count them as well.
Mm-hmm.
And is it legal residents in the county that they count, or is it all residents?
So this is driven to households. So again, the question that was proposed and was not included in the census is a citizenship question. So all it is merely asking is how many people reside in that home. And also one other thing I should say, because this is always a fear, the Census Bureau wants us to make sure this is known, that the Census Bureau does not share information with any other agency. I think in the past there have been some occasions where people are reticent to share information for whatever reason, because they're afraid it will go back to some other agency, but under penalty of law, that cannot be shared with any other agency. So hopefully that is not a reason people will not participate. Any other questions?
Questions?
Thank you, Mayor.
Moving down, then we have the council vote required to cancel Nixle for public city announcements.
Sure, thanks, Mayor. So we pay $3,500 a year for Nixle, which is the way we announce to the public any emergency, stuff like that. Logan County Sheriff's Department through EMA is now paying for their own Nixle, which is countywide, and they do most of our announcements for us now anyway. So we haven't, the department heads, I believe we got this going when the last city administrator was here, is to help try to get that communication to the public and within our own internal systems. But we're not utilizing it the way it needs to be utilized. And law enforcement, they offer a free account anyway, so we could still do law enforcement Lincoln PD releases without any charge. So we're not using the system to its fullest effect at this point. So why pay $3,500 a year when we can use that through Logan County anyway? So if we needed to. So the council voted to implement the system. So I'm coming to you to ask for permission to turn that on.
Are you going to place this on the radio, Jeff?
Question.
Yes.
So a resident would have to sign up through the county number?
It's the
or
same
not?
process.
Right.
If you're already signed up, because you sign up by your zip code. So when you signed up by your zip code. So like Logan County they can target Atlanta zip code, or they can target Lincoln zip code, et cetera. So we can only target 62656. So I mean, we're kind of limited in what we can do.
I'm saying
$3,500 anyway, so.
A citizen, do they have to do?
They don't have to do anything else.
They don't have to read.
Yep, they're still, as long as they're still signed up, they'll get them nickel notes.
All right, great, thank you.
Any further discussion? Place that on the radio agenda. Okay. Item 13, again, is not going to be discussed. There's not enough information yet on that. Item 14, progress on city's portion of Fish Street Road. Beth?
Yes, I don't have that much. I don't have that much to discuss, can you?
For now.
Just gotta talk about it.
I don't have that much to discuss tonight. I've got a cold, I'm sorry. I just wanted to tell you that, we've been going back and forth with IDOT, and Peggy was very generous in going back into all of our archives and getting our checks and things that we have to show to IDOT in order to get reimbursed for these items. So we're going back through the ones that we have, brought on through, acquisition. We're allowed to get reimbursement back of our motor fuel tax funds for the district road project. So that's what we're working on right now, and gonna get back on some of the other ones that we're pending with right now.
Any questions on that? Okay. Moving down to legalized cannabis dispensary fees. Kevin?
I don't have any updates. We left it at, suggestions for fees. I'm still with what I proposed before, 5,000 initial fee, 2,500 each year after that, and fines, whatever you guys would like to set them at. That's where we're at. If you guys are good with that, we can put it on the voting session. If you wanna discuss more fees, we can discuss it, or kick it to the next cow, which we've kicked several things already to the next cow.
Mr. Keller?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, and the only thing I found on that was the city of Chicago had proposed a $500 to $1,500 application fee for a license for the city of Chicago for dispensaries, based upon the size of the dispensary. That's all I saw. I don't know if it passed or not, but that was just one I seen.
John?
I believe last time we were here as well, Mr. Keller, I indicated to you that a good statute to look at would be, perhaps I can just go ahead and take a look at it, but a good statute to look at would be the smoking violations that occur within bars, and how those escalate quite drastically over the course of, over the course of their violations. The logic I kind of took with that, when I see these escalating fines, is that a lot of the establishments that get fined of that nature usually can't afford to pay high fines. And whereas they're not exactly saying where you cannot no longer operate your business, by virtue of not being able to pay your fine, you can't operate your business. So that's one avenue as well, that essentially would be worth looking into.
Kevin?
So with that being said, we could set, this is the fine portion, we could set it to where, since it seems that the establishment doesn't get their license pulled, we could set it into the ordinance that if a dispensary has a outstanding fine, that their next year application would not be approved. They would have to essentially owe the city nothing at that time before we renew their application year after year. So if they accrue 4 fines within a 1-year period, and that ends up being whatever the dollar amount is, potential large amount of money, the next year, when it comes time for their renewal, which we could then say, no, in the ordinance states that you cannot owe the city any money, or your renewal's not owed. If we're gonna do that, then why don't we set the fees at the same as alcohol, where it's $2,500 a year, and then put that kind of fine structure in place where they, each time they don't owe the city any money when their renewal comes up. This is the last piece of the puzzle, so I mean, if we just come up with some numbers, and then we don't have to talk dispensaries again.
Sorry, Chuck.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess regarding the fee, the licensing fee, I think you said 2,500 was what you were looking at there. I don't know what other cities are doing with that, but keep in mind you're only going to have one of these in Lincoln. So effectively, you're granting them a franchise. It isn't a franchise like cable or Ameren or anything, that sort of, but by limiting it to one, it is effectively a franchise, because there's gonna be any competition within the city, maybe not within the county. You might, just a suggestion, you might wanna increase that, fee, the, annual licensing fee, with that in mind.
What were you thinking? What were you thinking?
5,000. More if we can get.
John?
There's also the consideration as well, when we are setting these fines, for violations, as I previously indicated, they should be if they keep on, if they're habitual violators, then the fine should be as high to essentially make it to where it'd be very difficult for them to continue operation of their business because the fines are so high. It eats into their profits, or they're not able to have any profits whatsoever. And if the council is anticipating that a adult use recreational dispensary would be more profitable than your average liquor establishment in town, then perhaps those fines should be higher as well. Given the fact that the state of Illinois is taking pretty harsh observations and fines in association with, they're being quite stringent in regards to this, at least for the time being. Perhaps we should as well, but I'll leave that to the will of the council. So,
Kevin?
Whatever fines you come up with, I propose that they double each offense. So if it starts out at 2,500, the next one's 5, the next one's 10, the next one's 20. If they're habitual people and they gotta have this amount paid to $0 before their next certificate's handed out, you know, that, I think that would keep them honest. You know, I can't see someone running up $50,000 and $60,000 worth of fines and having to pay that to $0 each June 1st or May 1st or whatever day we make those licenses come due. That's just my proposal. I have no skin in this game, and I'm not trying to push dispensaries like what's been reported. But if you double it each time, that should ramp up that fee.
Other comments or thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know how to like say what's in my head though. So if we get this dispensary, I'm hoping that it stays for a long time. I want to see all of our businesses do well and stick around. So I'm looking long term, 30 years from now or whatever, I don't know, you know, years down the road. I would hate to penalize a business for a mistake that was made way, way back. So say a dispensary opens this year and they make one mistake and then another one a year later, and then they make a third one 10 years later. I feel like it's a bit harsh to throw a big penalty at them if they haven't made a mistake in 10 years. You know? I'd like to consider like
Sunset clause?
yeah, does that make sense? Yeah.
But doesn't the annual renewal solve your problem? They have to be at $0 at their annual renewal. So at that point, they have no offenses against them. Their fine is paid to $0.
So every year they start with a clean slate?
Is that what you're
talking
that's
about?
what you're asking for?
You're talking about offenses in a 12-month period.
Correct.
Oh, so every year it starts back at
Well, is that what you're asking, that, you know, they?
no, that wasn't what I was asking actually.
Okay.
I was thinking that you know, say first year they screw up and it's $5,000, then they screw up 3 years later. I just assumed it was still $10,000 or whatever, double. I thought it was gonna double every offense, but I don't wanna keep doubling
Throw a number out there.
How do we do it for liquor?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not opposed to doubling whatever liquor is, but how do we do it for liquor?
Give me a moment.
Give him a moment. How about 36 months?
Yeah, sure.
Suspend them.
They suspend
Yeah, liquor is a suspension, but I don't know, sometimes it's just 24 hours, because I think we've all been in establishments where the curtain's drawn down.
I think, are we not considering a suspension for a dispensary? Because this council seems to be under the impression that they have deep pockets, so let's get our hands in as much as we can. How do you think you're gonna get your hands in their pocket? By shutting them down for a day or two. I hate to say it, I'm not in favor of that mindset, but shut them down is more effective than a fine.
Then you set the fee structure up so it comes to that. How many offenses do you give them in a 36-month period before you pull their license for a number of days or weeks? 3.
So how would that?
I mean, that's what we're doing, we're arbitrarily setting
Yeah.
guidelines based on our opinions.
Well, there's nothing to go by. Ron's been researching just as I have. We're in smooth waters here. There's nothing to look up.
Shut them down is okay, but can you just shut down the recreational side and leave medical?
There would only be,
Oh,
there
yeah,
would
you're
only be
right.
recreational here in town.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless the state changes their mind and expands medical, as far as I know, the medicals are out there, which every medical now has recreation.
Is it a 24-hour period for a liquor establishment, chief?
It just depends on the liquor commission, how long they suspend it sometimes, so. It all goes to the liquor commission, from the way I understand it.
We haven't had one since
We shut them down before.
We have, there's been violations we've had before, if we've had several fights at a place or something like that, they'll get shut down.
So it's really based on the offense and the circumstances around it, not so much a general rule. First time, a day, second, okay.
Yeah, that's where the commission comes in.
Develop a cannabis
I
commission.
mean, yeah, it's like the same as the health department with the restaurant. I mean, they get shut down. I don't know how long that is, but until they.
Well, perhaps the liquor commission this could fall under their purview.
Yeah, why can't you just add cannabis dispensary to the liquor commission's duties and they determine?
I don't think we can.
No.
The liquor commission's powers are specifically outlined by the state of Illinois with the liquor commission that exists in that state, so.
Have you read any such rules about cannabis?
I have not seen any cannabis, like a commission that would exist for the enforcement of this, but, we are very, and guys, keep in mind, there will be amendments to this,
Yeah.
to this statute. There's already amendments being planned, okay, in regards to this. I think there's amendments in the process to, because they passed some things previously. They didn't intend for some things to go into effect at certain times, so now they're amending them, okay? Keep in mind that 5 years, 10 years from now, things will look different. Either this doesn't work for the state of Illinois and it goes back to, being illegal or at least, not enforceable in regards to illegal for the most part, but my experience is once the doors are open, they're kind of opened. If the rules become more lax on the behalf of the state of Illinois, let's say for example, they allow more licenses on the area, the reporting requirements, become more lax in regards to the state, then perhaps municipalities would be more inclined to amend their ordinances to reflect more lax rules as well. Just because we establish rules now doesn't, and we do try to future-proof our ordinances, granted, but things change. And it could be that we pass something and it doesn't work for the city. We don't like having a dispensary, in which case we can vote to remove it. There's still a lot of, even though we're trying to future-proof what we're doing now, there's still a lot of what-ifs and a lot of uncertain future
out there, so.
Kevin?
So, how about this proposal? Since we don't have a clear-cut date of when the state is going to release the next, round of licenses, and I've heard that they're gonna speed it up because of the popularity of the first week that it was open, but that's just talk from the State House. Why don't we, at this point, just come up with the licensing fee of what it would take to open a dispensary and the annual fee after that? That way, if someone gets a license and they look at the city of Lincoln, at least they would know what it's gonna cost them to open the doors of a dispensary, and at that point, it's gonna take them a while to remodel and everything else. Then we can work on the fine structure if they don't follow the state and city rules of that we set forward. So how about we just work on the licensing fees?
The fine structure will have to be in place though, prior to anybody opening up though,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So, what's your proposal on the amount?
My first proposal was $5,000 and $2,500 annually.
Steve?
What was your recommendation?
My recommendation was 5,000 annually, because it's effectively a franchise. Where liquor is not, especially now that there are a limited number of liquor licenses. But this one would be
I would go with the treasurer's recommendation, 5,000
each year.
Rod?
I know they're not exactly the same thing, but again, what is the fee for a liquor license?
With gaming, it's $2,500.
Why not 2,500? I guess I'm gaining the impression from, I'm just gaining the impression that we're charging 5,000 because we want to, because we can. It just seems a little greedy on behalf, particularly for money. I'm uncomfortable with that. 2,500 is what I would say.
Sir Gonzo?
Well, I don't know, is it greedy for one retailer to sell it and the exclusion of anybody else being able to legally sell it? I don't know, I guess that could be argued too. I mean, they are getting the way the ordinance is now, they do have the exclusive right to sell the product within the state.
I like the graduated structure just because the $5,000 at the first may weed out some of the people that are just wanting to open a dispensary. And then it's $2,500 annually after that, as long as they're good business partners with the city.
Don't we believe that if this is going to be as popular as we speculate, that we're going to see the difference through sales tax revenue? So I'm with Alderman Keller, why do we have to gouge them up front? We're gonna see the revenue.
Do we, we're collecting a franchise fee from Comcast. We're collecting a franchise fee now from Ameren for gas and electricity, which is something everyone has to buy. Most everyone has to buy. There are some exceptions, I guess, but generally those products in common circulation, and we don't think we charge a franchise fee. We also collect municipal sales tax from Ameren. So I don't see why we should.
But I don't think
give them the privilege of.
We didn't set out on this mission with a dispensary to even consider it being a franchise. As a matter of fact, tonight's the first night that I've even heard that used in regard to this topic. And so I don't think exclusivity is a reason to take more money from somebody.
Well, it is. I mean, you do this with.
It only is for people that want the money. If we're trying to be a business-friendly community, and we know what the climate of the state of Illinois is right now, is that really the message we want to send? I don't care what the business is. Is that the message that we want to send to a business? That if we know you make more money, then we're going to take more money from you. If we know you got exclusive rights, we're going to take more money from you.
Well, we do that already with the things I mentioned. It is, you know, that we're not calling.
We don't
it
do it at their
franchise.
disposal.
But what?
We don't collect a
No.
franchise fee from them.
From them, but we do, well, that's a good point. They didn't have exclusive franchise until recently. But, we did get certain things in exchange for that, including the cleanup, townwide cleanup, and some of those things, which are essentially
So then let's
the
ask-
equivalent of a revenue source.
So let's ask whoever that first company that receives a license to contribute money towards a drug awareness campaign or the DARE program or something like that.
Well, asking them to, and, this will ensure that they do. I mean, we're going to have a lot of additional problems as a result of this, and I don't think there's any question about that. And I don't think it's too much to ask with the amount of money that apparently they're going to be making on this, to pay an additional fee. And it isn't a franchise, but it is effectively the same thing, because you're licensing one place.
If
So-
they don't like it, they won't apply for it.
Right.
If they don't like it, they don't have to apply for it.
Well, they're applying with the state though, they're not applying with us.
For the renewal. I mean, if they
Yeah,
know
but I
going
mean-
in, that's what it's gonna be.
I
They
guess,
don't wanna risk it.
I guess I would have to ask why, what is the reason why we wanna make it 5,000? Because we think that's a good fee to set.
If we had unlimited number of dispensaries,
Mhm.
like we have for alcohol, how many alcohol licenses do we have?
I don't know anymore.
30? Or whatever, and how much does it cost?
I think it's roughly 15,
Yeah.
Not that many.
And you only have one marijuana dispensary, and if you made unlimited and you charge it 2,500 each or whatever it is, 1,500 without, gaming, we're not gonna allow gaming in the dispensary, are we?
I would hope not.
I was thinking about that earlier.
The state hasn't authorized that
We don't
either.
really got recreation going either.
So limiting just to one, this just seems asinine to keep talking about this. That they have a franchise-like opportunity to receive all of the sales in one city, one county. And we're worried about $2,500, some of us here as a council, like it's gonna bankrupt them or something.
I don't think it's gonna bankrupt them. I think the message that it sends is poor. I think it, especially for businesses that are gonna come into town, who may be people, likely are going to be people that are not from this town. So I just think it's the message, and I don't think that the reason behind it is a good reason to justify it. But that being said, I've said this plenty of times, put it on there for $5,000 and let the vote go and see what happens.
John and Kevin.
Just to clarify, there were some questions earlier, and it looks like you guys are kind of moving beyond the penalty fees, but I just wanted to add, I said I was gonna look into our city code in regards to that. There really isn't much in regards to business fines and fees. There's fines and fees for people, let's say open bottle violations, minors with alcohol that are caught. But it seems to me that the crux of the business, penalties to business was either the suspension or the revocation of the license that they have. So if they're caught potentially in the hours of operation outside of what they're allowed to via ordinance, then there would be a suspension of their license for a number of days, things of that nature. But I really didn't see much, just with a purview kind of glance within there, fines for the business itself that are levied against the business.
Kevin.
Quite honestly, the problem I'm having is, there's those that keep saying that this is gonna cause all kind of problems in the community. Chief Adams, how many marijuana problems do you see in a year versus how many alcohol problems do you see in a year?
Well, I don't have those numbers off the top of my head, but we've always had problems with alcohol, and the DUIs, we've already had DUIs for cannabis cars this year, so, I mean, it's and I believe it's gonna even out, is what it's gonna do. I think you're gonna have problems on both sides of that.
But the research I've done shows that I'm not saying it's overwhelming, but alcohol problems always outnumber the marijuana problems.
So because alcohol is legal and marijuana is not legal,
Riddle.
it's not even apples to apples when you do that research.
It goes back to the 30 licenses. Yeah, I mean, honestly, if it's more readily available,
Well,
right?
it will be more readily available when it's legal. You can't even do the comparison yet. And was that in the state of Illinois, or was that across the country? Was that
It's
Colorado?
across the country.
A little early.
Just, we can put it on there and we'll see how it goes. We'll work on the fines
So what are we
later.
putting on the agenda?
$5,000
All right.
For the annual fee.
Annual or?
annual
first time?
fee.
I'll make an ordinance in association with that, that's what you guys want.
Okay. So this will be on the regular agenda. Okay.
Yes.
All right, then moving down to the ride share discussion for Uber and Lyft. Devin?
Well, quite honestly, it's already operating in the city of Lincoln, so now it's up to this council whether we wanna make an ordinance and try to find these people and force them to pay a fee. A lot of small cities don't. Only the big cities. I can say in the research that I found that, the ride share services such as Lyft and Uber, they do vet their drivers. They're not allowed to have the app as a driver without proof of insurance. They've gotta have their cars certified. When I say certified, it goes to in larger cities, Uber or Lyft or other ride service actual facilities, and they check the car out. Or in a smaller city like Champaign and Springfield and such, it has to go to a DOT approved facility and be certified as a safe operating vehicle. They all have certain years. The vehicle has to be less than 10 years old. So to be one of those drivers, you've already jumped through a lot of hoops. So it is already operating in this town. We've tested it several times. We tested it New Year's Eve. From our living room to uptown, there was a Lyft driver in town, went on the app, boom, there it was, pick you up in 5 minutes. So it's just up to this council how they want to proceed, or just let it proceed the way it is.
So how does the city benefit from that?
They don't.
Just an annual license for taxi, taxi has to have an annual license every year.
So some of these drivers, I know that there was probably somebody in town, but a lot of those rideshare services, the people don't even live in the towns that they are servicing. We went to St. Louis for a hockey game. The lady that drove us was from 150 miles away. She just knew that there was going to be a lot of business that weekend, so she drove in, got a hotel, she stayed there. How will those people know that they need to get a permit in the city of Lincoln to operate?
That's
Other
what
than
I'm.
the police pulling them over?
That's what I'm finding out and asking if the city wants to even pursue it, because he is correct. The one person I was talking to that's an Uber driver, that's what he does. Super Bowl weekend, one weekend was in Indianapolis. He signed up with Uber, drove from here over to Indianapolis, spent the night there, made the money Ubering around, drove back to Lincoln. They do just what Tracy's. I can't confirm that Lyft driver was from Lincoln. I'm assuming he was. He was in Lincoln on New Year's Eve.
What's the annual fee for permit taxi? Do they put a decal or something on their car? Or it's just,
The taxi?
yeah,
The
do they have to
taxis
display
get-
their permit?
But, yeah, it's just the license look like everybody else.
I don't think they display it
I don't think they do. I mean, they might have it.
I can't find an ordinance in Springfield, Champaign, Bloomington. I only found them in large metropolitan cities like Chicago, St. Louis.
Yeah, I don't think they
And they're
should.
like $500 to file, but like Tracy said, what about the person who lived in Springfield and drove all the way to Indianapolis? I didn't research Indianapolis, but I mean, if they had a fee, that guy didn't pay it.
I don't
Larger
wanna-
cities are for, I think the fee is for congestion.
in bigger
on the
cities.
roads.
Yeah.
In like Chicago and stuff like that.
I mean, honestly, I think the benefit of having those services outweighs any monetary gain that we could have.
I agree too, but if we're also charging taxis, I think we should stop doing that. I mean, can we do that?
Well, I think the charge for the taxi is because, in my opinion, in reading the taxi ordinance,
Mhm.
it was created so that we know who is operating it and whether they have to bring in proof of insurance to the clerk's office to get that license. That's already been vetted with Uber and Lyft was the two companies I looked into.
Okay.
That's already been vetted. So the $25 fee for the taxi, if you wanna waive that, the problem is, then we have no way of knowing that the taxi driver is insured. Where Uber and Lyft,
We can't make them
Is.
register, but just do it for free?
who's gonna do that?
Same people that register today, except for when you do the transaction at the counter. Sorry, Peggy, not trying to create more work for you. You just don't take money as part of that transaction.
Yeah, you could waive the $25 fee.
Is it per taxi? Cause what is there, two in town?
I don't know.
It's per company.
It's one company. in
One
town,
company with two
But I
vehicles?
think have two vehicles.
So is that two,
I believe so.
so $50, you know?
$50 annually is what the city would be losing by
Yeah.
wiping that fee off and just. But the question is, are you proposing wiping the fee, but they still have to register with the
Yeah,
clerk
it's
so
still like
they
to
know that the
register
car
with
is
somebody,
insured?
because Uber and Lyft are already registering with their companies. Everybody needs to be registered, so that the taxi folks can register with the city at no charge, and then the Uber and Lyft people can register with their companies.
Okay, but part of that ordinance also regulates the fee that the cab company can charge. So if you're going to eliminate the $25 per vehicle fee, my proposal would be taking off the limits.
I don't know about that. There's people in this town that
Part of having this
on a very
fee
strict budget that
is
could be impacted.
by not having to register Uber and Lyft, it does not cost the city time, or resources, but to make sure for the citizens that our taxis are operating safely and are insured, it still requires the service and the resources of the city, which causes time and money. Minimal, $50, $25 a company, shouldn't be anything to them, and it just helps a little bit with our staff already. I think we should just leave it as is.
I think so too. Because the Uber and Lyft drivers do have to pay Uber and Lyft. Well, one, just the DOT approval's like $150.
Okay.
So that person that's driving that Uber or Lyft is already paid that company. They haven't paid into any municipality,
Okay.
but they're paying a fee also so that you're assured that that is a safe driver. It's actually one up because it's newer vehicles. It's been DOT approved, which the cabs have not. They just gotta prove they have insurance. And, doesn't it show you the driver?
Picture of the driver.
Picture of the driver and the cars
License
that's
plates,
coming up. So the
ratings.
ride share services, in my opinion, are a lot safer than a taxi service.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. I'm fine with leaving as is then.
So leaving the fees the same, then does anything have to be changed in the ordinance in that?
No. It's just us announcing that those services are already operating in the city of Lincoln. I was contacted mostly by the Lincoln College. Which let's face it, most of those students come from larger municipalities who are already using those services.
Yeah,
And
I've had
as
requests
I
for
said in
years
the
now.
last call, we already have food delivery service in town and grocery service in town, because Aldi's will deliver straight to your home. So,
So we're gonna leave it the way it is.
never to be disgusting.
All right. Moving down to announcements, Deb.
Yes, real quick. Oh, I need the next one. Okay, real quick. Okay. The big table they've been working on with the Greater Peoria Economic Development Council, and they're gonna have that big table for Lincoln, and Logan County will be rural matters, and it's gonna be held out at Lincoln College at the Johnson Performance. And it's from 4 to 7 on January 30th. So it'll be really interesting. We break out into some groups and talk about what we need to do for our community. Second thing is, Cresco is having a job fair at the Oasis, 10 to 4 p.m. on Saturday, the 27th. And they're sending out invitations to people like us who have previously applied. So that's really interesting. And it sounds like the basic or average dollar amounts could be pretty good for employment. So it's really going to be a nice opportunity. So if people can run out there, they should. They said approximately 100 jobs. So with their expansion, so that's a really good thing. So I'm glad they chose to
They
contact
may be
me.
the largest employer in Lincoln here shortly.
There's no doubt. Then the other thing is we got a notification from the Burger King. The former Burger King is for sale. We already knew that, but they put a price on it, $425,000 if anybody's interested. And then we are working on filling some empty buildings in the community. So things have really been hopping in the last couple days. Don't you think? I think it's just turned the new calendar year. Then I have an announcement from Comcast that they are going to, this is the last one, that they're making some Xfinity TV changes for the non-Hispanic international programming networks. So look down the road for that. You might have to change your older device, your box, if it's not picking up those channels. Thank you.
Do we have any other announcements? Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to give a little update to the Fourth and Decatur project at Carroll.
It's off.
Oh, it's all.
Yeah, I'd like to give an update to the council on the Fourth and Decatur project. I'm green.
Push it.
Now I'm nothing.
Get closer. Just talk loud.
No, I'd like to give you an update on the Fourth and Decatur project. It's totally finished. We had 5 points that I think you guys may be interested in. At a pre-construction meeting, we took a manhole out of the project to both align where Fourth and Decatur meet and make maintenance easier for us. This also reduced the cost of the project overall. There was one catch basin that we planned on reusing that turned out to be made out of cinder blocks and old bricks and caved in as soon as the trench came by it. So we had to replace that. That was an unexpected cost to it, but due to pulling out that previous manhole, we covered those costs. There was a natural gas line hit during construction. There were no injuries with this. It was unmarked, so there should be no liability for the city, Petersburg, or anyone other than USIC from Ameren. Water service was broken that feeds the school during the trench digging. That was repaired. Boil order notifications were coordinated between Petersburg and Carroll Catholic. And that's it. I don't have any hardened numbers for you guys yet. We're looking at the first week of February for those.
Do we have other announcements?
Hey, Bob.
The elevator, Coney came this afternoon late. They'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. So hopefully by Friday when the agenda comes out, it'll be on there. The next week's council will be back at City Hall.
Correct.
It looked like they told you originally about 2 days to fix it. So
Yeah,
hopefully,
he was thinking 2 to 3 full business days.
so hopefully we'll know something by Friday.
Ron?
Yeah, two things. One, the Logan County Department of Public Health wanted me to pass along an announcement that flu shots are still available. With the wacky weather, flu is up, so they just want to be sure if you have not taken advantage of that to seek the flu shots at the health department. And secondly, this really falls probably more under discussion item than announcement, but we want to be sure it was on this week's agenda. Actually, I'm going to turn it over back to the police chief for more, and then I can tag on. What you want.
Oh, sure, yeah, you want to talk about that? Okay. Here, let's do some audio and video now. Audio now, we're going to do video.
Dang. Maybe high tech girl. Second microphone. Yeah.
John's baby, take care of that
Courier run.
Sarah, would you like to shut the lights off?
All right, so as you can see here, we have this picture. The reason we bring this up is been working on a new patch for the police department. And the problem with the current patch, it doesn't represent anything about Lincoln or anything else. It was drawn or put together back in the 60s, I think, the 50s or 60s.
64.
Yeah. I think it was actually stolen from somebody else. So the patch needs updated. So in the process of updating it, we wanted to put something on that represented Lincoln and something that really truthfully represented the Lincoln that was here at that time. So I talked to Ron about, since he's kind of our history guru for the city now, about different pictures and et cetera, et cetera. So I'll let him kind of take it from the history aspect of this photograph.
So, thanks, Chief. Yeah, so he had shown me several images, and this one seemed to represent in many ways Lincoln the best, because as the Chief said, this is taken by Roderick Cole in Peoria in 1858, which had been around the same time he came in October of 1858 in debating with Stephen Douglas for the U.S. Senate. He came here and gave a rally on October 16th, and some 5,000 people showed up. This is the image of Lincoln the city would have known Lincoln to be. And as the Chief referenced, the one that is currently on our materials was taken in 1864, long after he was president. So, and what the Chief and I, our discussion led to is perhaps if the other departments in the council okayed it, we could phase this in to be the image that we use for our branding for our city of Lincoln. That's exactly where it's going to go. That can be transferred onto patches as well as city materials, and therefore, so what else you want to say about that?
So this is kind of what I've been working on.
Yes.
And maybe this will be the city seal for us. If you like that. If you don't like that, call me and I'll change it.
I like that one thing around the person before.
Did you wear a top hat then? Because my question and concern is, and I agree, you know, he did it. What makes Lincoln Lincoln is Mr. Lincoln christened this town in 1853. So, does history show that he wore a top hat then, and maybe incorporate that so that people outside the city of Lincoln? I think what makes our logo resonate with people outside of the city of Lincoln is it's the image of Abraham Lincoln that's known worldwide, with the beard and the top hat.
Yeah, two things I would say to that. It's amazing the number of people that I've talked to when they see Lincoln represented in any way, shape, or form, like our world record. Many people who came, who I talked to, who came from out of the area, or even talked to in general, had said, why a beard? Because he didn't wear a beard before 1860. I think most people, it's general common knowledge, maybe not because I'm a historian, but it should be, that Lincoln didn't always have the beard until the presidency. And secondly, I would say, yeah, so what? It represents our heritage and our namesake in the city of Lincoln.
I don't think the current logo has a top hat on it.
No. Oh, yeah. Back to, and so the top hat, he never really wore the top hat in photographs. There's only 2 or 3 that he ever wore a top hat for. Stagements, he never wore the top hat.
What about the picture, in either way, the picture that hangs in the courthouse rotunda? We were told by that was one of Lincoln's favorite pictures of himself. Can't remember if he's got a beard in that one or not. I don't think he was president at the time.
Where's that?
It's next to the statue in the rotunda at the courthouse.
Actually, according to all the history that I've read on this, this is the one he favored the most of himself.
Yeah.
That's why he used it on all his campaign
He
materials,
did.
etc.
Yes.
It might be the same picture, it just looks different here. The one at the courthouse is the actual photograph, because one of the things that's depicted, and it may not show up in that picture, is there's a line across his chest because the photographer asked him to tuck his glasses in, and he reached across his chest and tucked them in. So in the photograph is the little string or chain going across his chest. And they obviously they didn't Photoshop that back then, and they left it in there.
Chief, can you go back to the patch pictures or whatever? Sure. On the inside, it looks like there's letters. What does that say? I can't read.
Yeah, sorry.
Named for and christened by before he was president.
It's kind of, hold on. It's named for and christened by before he was president.
That's unique, that's unique.
It's a little hard for me to read.
Yeah, it will be like this.
Just if
The
kind of
screen
a
doesn't do justice.
sidebar to this, if you want to see pictures of Abraham Lincoln throughout his adult life in the display case at Postville Courthouse, and maybe also at the museum. I know there's a lot of pictures there too, but we have them in one at Postville Courthouse, that display case just inside the door. You'll see pictures of him from as a young lawyer on up through just a picture that was taken of him a few days or a couple weeks before he was assassinated. There's a series of about 12 to 14 pictures that you'll see there, and they including this one here, and you'll see, and at different ages, and it'll kind of put this in perspective for you. Unfortunately, Postville Courthouse is closed until May 1st, and we're closed for the winter, but I'm sure we can arrange for you to get in there and see it if you want to see it.
This would be phased in, it wouldn't be any additional cost to the city, it would just be as we run out of current stationery.
Yeah, whatever we want to do, so.
Okay.
This will show up. There's a lot of detail. Is it going to show up okay on?
Like a patch?
Yeah.
This would have to be sent to a patch manufacturer and see what they can do, so.
Okay.
But if you like the seal, you can always change the font around, and if you like that, don't like that.
Whatever you think. Yeah, we're fine with whatever. I think. As long as it's functional, I guess.
The one good thing about this, the timing wise, is that we're getting ready to purchase some new entry signs, welcome signs. So I'm glad I wasn't in a big hurry to get that done.
Yeah, there's.
I guess we can't mention that.
So, yeah, there's several reasons why this is, I would say pressing necessary, but we do need to probably move on this for these purposes. The department heads all looked at, and my understanding is department heads were all okay with phasing this in and adopting this. Yeah, back to cost, I thought the same thing. I don't know what cost there would be under, of course, the new patches, and I know there's an image on the windows of City Hall I don't know, that would have to be redone at some point. I don't think it has to be urgently done. But we would certainly like the council's approval to move ahead with this.
Is it on the agenda?
Go for it. Yeah, place on the agenda the approval of the city seal as presented. I would say the patch as presented, other than, other than the fine print and how the patch company comes back.
This goes a little bit beyond the legal aspect, but if you guys are gonna be looking for approval of a seal, do you want to get, I mean, you're concerned how it's gonna actually look in real life, so to speak. Is it possible to get a sample made up first before, so you know how it'll translate to real life?
I think the seal would depict exactly there. It's the patch.
The patch is
probably be the sticking point. Is there a way to do that, Paul, before next voting session?
I can get it submitted to them, but I doubt they'll have, because they'll have to take this artwork and get it transposed and put it in there the way they need it. It's in a vector format now, so there shouldn't be a lot to do. It's just what can they actually print from that. So,
But could you, not an actual patch, could you get an answer? I mean, they may say no way.
I could try it. Yeah.
I mean, we at least vote on the logo and work on the patches. Because the logos, I mean, the city seals used much more prevalent than the patch on the police uniform. What about the new squad cars? Is that gonna be on the squad cars, or you just?
Yeah, I was hoping to get that. Well, just put on like fenders on all the squad cars once we get it done.
So we'll be on next week's agenda. Okay. All right.
Thank you for that consideration.
Other announcements? Okay, just to note that next week's meeting is Tuesday instead of Monday due to the holiday at 7 p.m. Any further announcements? Your motion to adjourn. So moved. Second. Mr. Keller made the motion. Mr. Wells seconded. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Meeting adjourned at 8:13 p.m. Thank you.
No executive.